Well, thanks for stopping by the 33 Kings studio to hang with your old buddy, Uncle Jay. Now, when everybody thinks of a family feud, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Yeah, right, the Hatfields and McCoys. But let old Uncle Jay tell you a tale about one of the most bloody feuds, one that had the most casualties of any family feud in history. Let's tell you about bloody Clay County in Kentucky. The Philpotts and the Griffins. Now, the leaders of the Philpotts are George, Pleasant, Timothy, and the Honorable Granville Philpott, an ex-state senator. Now, they're prosperous farmers and timbermen. Now, this faction of about 200, which nearly all live in the Pigeon Roost district, 7 miles from Manchester. The leaders of the Griffins are Saul Griffin, Dave Chadwell, and their faction's composed of a little less than 200 of the Griffins, Chadwells, Barnetts, Hamptons. Now, with the exceptions of the Chadwells, well, all are pretty much poor farmers, but are game fighters, and they live in the Pigeon Roost area, 2 miles from the Philpott headquarters. Now, in the fall of 1896, John Philpott and his father, Granville Philpott, met Aaron Morris and William Bundy, Morris's father-in-law, who accused John Philpott of having some of them named as liars. The words grew warm until the fighting started, and John Philpott was shot by Morris in a hand-to-hand battle with revolvers. The hostility still grew between the factions, and, well, it come to a head on Christmas Day in 1898. Smith Cheeks, a bad man, pretty much a nervy shot, well, he had a little country store on House Creek, 2 miles from Pigeon Roost. Now, Green and Hugh Griffin and Aaron Morris and William Bundy were at the store that afternoon, having a little festivities and drinking, of course, and having a good time. And they'd been shooting turkeys all day. Now, they were standing out eating some cheese and crackers and, well, drinking moonshine whiskey. Well, up the road came 3 Philpotts: Jim Crow Philpott, Pete Philpott, and Pleasant Philpott. Now, they rode past the store at a pretty good gallop, and, well, they stopped, consulted together, and then they rode back. They yelled to Smith Cheek and says, "Let us in your store. You know I'm the best shot in Clay County, and I've got the kin and the cousins out here to prove it," said Jim Crow Philpott to the Griffin gang inside. "No, you're not," replied Morris. "I live in the same county that you do." And after that, Morris fired on Jim Crow Philpott, and then the fighting began. Every man in the crowd joined in, and when the smoke cleared away, William Bundy, Aaron Morris's father-in-law, lay dead. Smith Cheek, the storekeeper, had lost an ear, and not long after that, Evans Chadwell was shot and killed by one of the Philpotts who fired at him during an ambush. Battle of Hooker's Branch took place on July 17th, 1898. It was a terrible array of gunfire unequaled in the annals of the Kentucky feuds. George Philpott, his 2 sons Pete and Bob, and nephew Edward Fisher started for Redbird Creek to cut timber. On the way, they met a deputy sheriff named Wash Thacker, who had a bench warrant for Bob Philpott to appear as a witness against Morris in the grand jury. Now, they met a little opening in the forest in the road and where it crosses Hooker's Branch, and George Philpott began to write out the bond. And then suddenly they noticed a little party that started grouping around them. Suddenly Hugh, Harv, and Green Griffin dashed into sight on horseback, led by Aaron Morris. As they galloped up, Morris fired, striking Philpott in the back. Pete Philpott grabbed a rifle from the wagon and put a bullet into Morris's head, and the leader of the Griffin boys rolled under his horse and lay dead. And while this was going on, the three Griffin boys confronted Ed Fisher, getting between him and the wagon. The Fisher had a stockpile of weapons already loaded, so he grabbed them and started shooting. Then as he fell back, dying, while he fell, his revolver discharged and killed Hugh Griffin. Only 4 men were left now: Harv, Green, Griffin on one side, and George and Pete Philpott on the other. The deputy sheriff had disappeared into the woods at the first sign of gunfire. Now, the Griffin boys fought desperately, even after they were wounded and unable to aim their weapons, but both were finally killed. And of the 7 who began the battle, only 2 survived: George Philpott and his son Pete. They weren't even touched. Now, even after the Battle of Hooker's Branch, the vendetta waged on, unceasingly. A few nights afterward, Saul Griffin's house was surrounded by a posse of armed men who riddled the cabin with bullets. The family laid down flat on the floor and escaped, miraculously. Dave Chadwell, a deputy sheriff and a member of the Griffin clan, was next ambushed and shot to death. Bob Gregor, another Griffin sympathizer, was shot and killed as he rode along the highway near Manchester. Now, in some of the trial proceedings after the Battle of Hooker's Branch, Deputy Sheriff Thacker testified that Morris had fired the first shot in the fight. Now, according to Thacker's testimony, well, this just caused the Morris clan to just throw him in line with the Philpotts. Now, it's said that as he rode home with his half-brother Jim, they were murdered in the very spot where the Hooker's Branch battle had taken place. Just touched a tiny bit of the bloodiest family feud in history, the Clay County War. Now, this is the first episode. There'll probably be about 4 more. Now, I have to say this. My old great-great-great-grandpappy Aaron Morris, well, he doesn't seem like he was all that great of a guy. But, well, we can't pick and choose our family now, can we? So, hey, if you like what Uncle Jay's doing, hit that like, subscribe, the notification bell. And remember, there's no obligation to you whatsoever, but it really helps us out. Thanks. Have a great day.